Today we are going to do something we've never done before. We're going to winterize a coach. Not this coach, this coach. And if you don't recognize this coach, it's from this video. It's the Gars. So he does a different kind of a winterization, but because we live in ours, we don't actually winterize our coach. We just maintain and camp in cold weather. They've been hanging out with us in North Texas, and what's going to happen now is they're going back to Arkansas where they have to experience some freezing temperature. And what's going to happen is he needs to do his version of winterization, which is a little different. He's not going to use the antifreeze. I'll let him explain it here a little bit. So anyway, we're going to help do their coach. And it's Andy. We are actually, ironically, in a very similar outfit. You didn't get the red hat memo.
I did not.
Okay, so we've never had to winterize our coach because we just live in it in the winter. You're about to leave North Texas and head back towards Arkansas.
Correct.
And you are going to have the rig in freezing temperatures and you're not going to be in it.
Correct.
So you have a winterization process, and there are multiple processes for this. So if you don't mind, we're just going to kind of tool around with you and kind of see how it goes, because I'm also learning.
Not a problem.
The other side of this is you have a slightly unique version. So the normal way most people would winterize is they get the antifreeze essentially, but it's an RV specific kind of pinkish antifreeze. And what it is if you were to digest it, while not great for you, it won't kill you like regular antifreeze. That's why it's that way. But you don't use that stuff.
I don't.
So why did you choose to use the system you use?
Yeah, so we travel throughout the year, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to go back, it's going to get put away in freezing temperatures, but I don't know that necessarily in 6 weeks we're not going to want to use it again.
Gotcha.
And so what I do, it allows me to winterize it fairly quickly and then be able to pull it back out of storage, use it again, not have to worry about flushing out the RV antifreeze, all that stuff.
So for you, it was about still using it during the winter and not having to like permanently or continuously flushing out the system. Okay.
Yep.
So let's, I guess, where do you start in the winterization process?
Yeah, so over on the hookup bay.
Before I even say that, his family just left.
Yeah.
Which means he gets left with everything by himself. But they do that because that way he doesn't have any people trying to use restrooms, water, all that stuff. It's just, I'm assuming you do anything last minute you need to do, and then it's services off.
Pretty much.
So, okay. So from that standpoint, he has done nothing to this rig to get it ready for travel. So
yep, kid just left, had to use the bathroom one last time.
Except for pack random things up. So what's your first step?
Yeah, so first thing is I go over, I have a little system that's built in that I kick that on and get it primed up and then go from there.
Let's go look at it. Okay, well, we're back at my rig, and it's because I don't know what happened, but I lost the footage outside of Andy's rig and all of the components that he did. So I'm going to go through and kind of explain this as best I can on my rig. Also, I'm going to link and do everything down below so that you can see what he did. And if he has the ability before this video goes out, I will try to get some pictures of his rig and the setup so that I can include them here for you. So, all right, let's get turned around and talk through how he has that little mini air compressor installed. Okay, well, like I said, unfortunately, because of losing that clip, I'm going to do my best to explain what Andy has, but on our rig. Obviously, it's the same thing. Now, I say that, unfortunately, I'm filling our freshwater tank, as you can kind of see that thing going right there. So I can't move this at the moment. And so if I can't move these, there's no point in really moving these. So what Andy did is he took that compressor and he mounted it up here. Now, I have this thing here, and I'm not sure what the difference is between our two, but he has it mounted there. And then he has it wired into his 12-volt. And then from the 12-volt, the actual air line goes in over here. Now, it goes in line with like your city and tank fill. So you're going in from your main, which would be right off of this line here. Now, this is the part where he talked a little bit about. He had to install a valve, so just a two-way valve, a lot like one of these, for the tank fill portion. Now, if you have a Nautilus system, you don't have to worry about this. You can just go in on that main line and you don't have to worry about it because of how the Nautilus system works. If you have a traditional RV that does not have the Nautilus system or has a mana block system like this, then you have to kind of put that valve so that you don't push air down your tank. Otherwise, when you try to push air to your faucets and release them, then what's going to happen is it's just going to go to your tank and it's not going to create that pressure from there. Now, the other thing he did out here before he ever went inside and started working on any of the stuff in there was he actually did his low point drain first. And how he did that, and you'll see this in a second when we do his sink, he would open this up, release the water, close it a couple of times, close it again. It would create pressure, and just like your water pump, what would happen is it would stop cycling when it creates that right amount of pressure from the unit that's up there, and then he'd reopen it, it'd push more water out, close it, reopen it, and just kind of do that a few times until not a lot of water was coming out of it, or none whatsoever. So, okay. With that being said, let's now get back to the main video and go inside with Andy and his rig and start that whole process from the inside.
Shut it off, let it build back pressure up for a second, and run it one more time.
And as soon as it's pretty much done, you're done. You move on to your next fixture.
Yeah. So then I'll flip it over to the hot side.
This is exciting.
Yes, it is very exciting.
Now, how does this speak? So, here's my hot water question. You ready? Sure. You have a tankless.
Yes.
So, if I, and this may be the same, it might be different, but we don't have a tankless. We've got the 12-gallon typical Suburban DSI. Will it pull more water because it's trying to pull out of the tank as well? So, you really should empty your tank first.
You can.
Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there for a while.
Yeah.
So, it's significantly more than the cold water.
Correct.
And what are you looking for so that you know you can done and move on?
Just when I open up the valve and I'm not getting just a couple drips like that one.
And I'm guessing the compressor staying on, too, is a sign that it's just pushing air straight through.
Right. And again, there's always going to be a little residual water left in the line, but at this point it's so little that if it does, if you have a drop or two freeze, it's not going to swell and bust the line or anything like that.
Right, because ultimately that's what you're trying to avoid is...
So at the end of the day, I'm not necessarily keeping all the water in the RV from freezing. I'm keeping it from the point if it freezes, it's going to damage something.
Right.
So, and then we'll do the same thing in here with the shower.
And just out of curiosity, what PSI does that compressor work at?
So I think it runs around 12 or 15 PSI.
Okay.
And that's why I like it compared to like using your own and using the adapter.
Yeah, because sometimes those can get up to 50, 60, 70, up to 100 potentially, which obviously can damage. There's a reason why you put a water pressure regulator on when you're running water.
So this one I know won't give me enough pressure to hurt any of my plumbing or do anything like that.
It's just enough to push it out and have a slow trickle at the last of it.
Right. Now this one too, because of the shower system we have in here, I will rotate it around and go ahead and blow out the handle and those as well.
So that's situational based on you. If you've got a fancy schmancy spa style, or if you just have what we have and it's just a head. So if you did like what you kind of did there, where you just put in the middle, does it just take longer?
What's that?
Instead of having it like on the faucets where you can regulate how much hot and how much cold you get. Like on our handle, we have two handles, so I could just open one. But if you open both, it does the same thing. It just takes longer.
Correct.
Because it's only got about 15 psi, so it can only push. So it's kind of like when you open up your water. If you turn your shower on and try to use the sink at the same time, inherently they both end up with less water pressure.
Correct.
I'm not going to lie, I was hoping for a scenario that maybe you accidentally sprayed yourself, because that's better for the people on YouTube.
And then the other part too is
oh, the fun stuff.
We'll also do the toilet. Let it run through.
See, that's a good tip, because I would have forgotten the toilet. So it's all lines, no matter how gross they become.
Yep. That's why I didn't open the lid. I have kids.
They appreciate that.
So I'll do the toilets. This trailer doesn't. Our last trailer had an ice maker on the fridge, so you'd have to run. So it actually had a disconnect outside that I pull and do the same thing with it. And so it's really washer dryer. It's really any water hookups.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I'm going to let you finish this because there's a lot more fixtures to do.
Yep.
And as it's interesting, but not all that much fun to watch constantly. So when we're done, we'll come back.
Okay. I said, it's really nice because it goes quick. I don't have to mess with the antifreeze. And when we're ready to go use it next, I just put water to it.
Yeah.
And then I'm ready to go. I don't have to worry about flushing anything out or draining anything. It's just ready to rock and roll.
So then for you guys, for this coach, which again, if you're in a Valor 44 V14, or most Valors, they're going to have similar amount of fixtures, or at least larger fifth wheels. How long does it typically take you from starting the process to ending this process?
So, at most 30 minutes.
Okay.
And again, so like I said, I waited till the family left, so I knew we were done using all the fixtures and everything else. And I mean, you guys have been with me real time up to this point.
Yeah.
Going this far, and all I've got left is the back room.
Cool.
Bathroom. That word.
What about
Words are tough.
What? They can be. So then, like when you do your, I guess your outside ports, will you do those as well?
Yep.
So you'll hook up your quick connect codes and just open it up essentially.
Yeah.
And then I'm just trying to think. So the only thing that really doesn't get hit in that process is your flushes.
Correct.
Which backflow to empty anyway.
Right.
Should at least. Because you go up to the regulator, the radiators and regulators there is to introduce a little bit of air to it and have an overflow protection.
And then like the washer dryer hook up in the back, I don't mess with those because we haven't turned off the manifold outside.
Yeah.
So there's never water. There's never been water in those lines.
Gotcha.
So like we don't even mess with those.
Because you guys don't have washer. You don't have a washer dryer here at all.
No.
Gotcha. So if you did have a washer or dryer, how would you handle that one?
So that one's a little bit tougher, right? The right way to do it's unhook the lines.
Okay.
And then just like stick a bucket underneath it, and you could just kick on the valve and do it that way.
There's a truck coming that was leaving with a Montana, and it was struggling for the hill for a little bit.
But yeah, the right way to do it's to unhook the line off the outlet.
Gotcha.
And then just like take a little bucket or cup, kick that on, let the compressor do its thing.
Okay.
Merge both lines that way.
Cool. So Andy just said the outside ones are the ones that he typically would forget about on accident. I could see myself forgetting that too. If we were to ever not full-time but still have an RV, I would actually look at this because it's way simpler. Because if you have the compressor, you have to have the adapter, hook it up, get it out, have power. Then you're worried about regulating the pressure in a way that you don't blow your lines apart. So the next time you put water through them, you don't mess it up. It's a cool system, and you don't have to worry about the antifreeze thing. So now I will tell you that if you are going to go, and this is all levels of extremes, right? Andy, you're in Northwest Arkansas, right?
Yeah.
So they're in Northwest Arkansas. It gets cold, but not ridiculously cold, and they use the coach. So if you're putting your rig in storage and you're up at, like, say you're in Canada, that might be a slightly different scenario for you. And so you have to do what's right for you. And while this works for them, you know, again, it comes down to will it work or not for you. For us in Texas, this would also work because we don't get as cold down here, and it's kind of short, frequent bursts of it, not all at once. Arkansas gets colder there. It works for him up there. They also use it periodically throughout the winter. But if you are putting it in storage for a long period of time in an extreme northern position, northern Wisconsin, Canada, Montana, Washington State, you know, upstate New York, Maine, all that, you may want to consider the antifreeze because I don't know that this would be enough for you. Maybe it is. That's one of those that you have to kind of test and figure out what's best for you. I think it also is situational for how many times you're going to use in the winter. If you're in those whiteout conditions and it goes into storage, I don't know that you're necessarily using it as much. Okay, so you just said something about why you like Alliance a little bit better than some others, and why is that?
Yeah, so in the Alliance, there's the plumbing from that manifold system outside to like this faucet back here in the back bathroom is one solid line. There's no splits, there's no T's, there's nothing like that.
Just off the manifold itself.
Right. So that way, when I'm draining this line, I know it's completely drained. So our other trailer we had before this wasn't ran that way. And so I would actually go through the whole trailer. So like now that I'm done here, I would go back to the beginning and do it again. Because I was worried about, hey, as I flushed out the kitchen sink, did this sink drain back into that line?
Gotcha.
And so I would actually go through the trailer 2 times, front to back. Whereas this one, since they're dedicated runs, I know when it's blown out, and I don't have to worry about other water getting back into it.
It's important to note, too, that all Alliances are plumbed that way, but not all Alliances have that manifold system. In fact, Valor is the only line that uses that manifold system, at least at the time of filming, which is November of 2024. So if you're in a Paradigm or an Avenue, you're going to have some version of the Nautilus system, but there you still have individual lines to all your faucets, and then your shutoffs, instead of being down at the manifold, are actually at the individual spots. So it's at your sink, it's at your toilet, it's at your whatever. Now, the flip side is if you're in a Delta or a travel trailer from Alliance, they don't use either of those systems. They use the old school. So Valor and Delta are going to have the same problem. Remember how we talked about that valve he had to install so it didn't backflow into their fresh tank for the fill side? That's the same problem that Delta's going to have the same problem that Valor has, what I'm trying to say, because there is no Nautilus system. Now, if you have a non-Alliance branded coach, it's just situational on that, whether or not it's we can't speak to if it has dedicated lines. Some do, some don't. So you may have to go through it a couple times. But as far as that backfill into the freshwater tank, that's situational based on if you have a Nautilus or not. We're outside. Okay, so this is the exact same process, but you're going to spray my feet.
Shoes were dirty.
What?
Shoes were dirty.
Oh, thank you. Now, this is also one of those situational things that depending on your rig, I just bumped into the golf cart. Depending on your rig, it's how many of these you have. Valors have one. Well, technically two. There's one over by the manifold system that's inside. But if you have a Paradigm, they're also going to have two. But if you have a Delta, you have three. Because Deltas have one here, on the other side interior, and they also have one on the back.
Okay.
I don't know why, but they do. I'm told to clean things. I don't know what that's like. So fun fact, I have those handles turned off. Do you know why?
Because if they mix together, you won't have hot water.
Well, that. The other side too. Now you have a tankless, so that doesn't matter as much. But if you leave the hot water on there and it keeps trying to heat the line and all that, it can eventually burn out the controller on your DSI hot water heater.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We learned that the hard way in our first rig. And so now I always leave the hot water off. So with that being said, I actually leave both those off most of the time because there's no reason to ask for water to something if you don't need it. Kind of why, like you were saying about the washer and dryer, you don't have them, so you have your panel turned off. And that's why I like the manifold so much, is because while we have a washer dryer in the back, we don't up front. And we've got valves for both of them. And then from there, I turn the ones off to the bedroom. And so I've never actually had water in those lines because there's no reason to. Why put pressure in something if you don't have to? All right. So you're pretty much done.
Yep.
And I know I just asked you this 4 seconds ago off camera without the camera up, which was dumb of me. But what's the last thing you do in this process?
So I finish up with my low point drains here. I know I hit one of them at the first, but I'm just going to go ahead and make sure.
That was pointed differently.
And again, another call out, right? Low point drains are here on a Valor. A lot of people, they're hanging down underneath. Yep. They can be a lot of different places.
Yep. So this is one of those, if you happen to have a Valor, this is really easy. If you don't, it's going to be a touch different potentially for you.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm pretty much done with the compressor. So shut this valve off right here.
Oh, but I like that noise.
I know. I'll turn the power off to it, and then I'm going to go ahead and flip this valve that I added in here to separate it from the tank. That way, the next time I go to use my tank and it doesn't work, I
understand why.
So that way I don't forget it. Take care of that. And then the last thing I do is make sure my hot water heater is drained out.
Ah.
So we do have a Truma tankless hot water heater.
He fancy.
Yeah. It does have a little bitty like 1 liter tank in here. So this is mostly blown out, so it shouldn't get you. If you're not paying attention and you come down and hit this, it'll spray a lot of hot water at you.
Moving the camera away from you. Oh. Oh.
Yep, like that.
It shouldn't get you.
Okay, you got me.
What happened, Andy?
Yeah, it still had a little pressure in it.
You look at me. You look like me at dinner last night.
So anyway, on the Truma, you pull this out. It drains this little tank here, and then that's really it.
So why wouldn't you? Okay, there's a lot of questions here.
Yeah.
One, why was there smoke coming out of it?
That's dust. It was dust.
Oh, okay. Sure it was.
I stirred up dust.
2, why wouldn't you relieve pressure with that pressure valve first?
Because I wasn't thinking.
Oh, okay, perfect. And I just called you out on a video.
Yep.
So if you had a traditional 12-gallon hot water heater, there's a couple of ways you can do this. One, you would relieve pressure through a pressure valve that looks kind of like what he has just above that yellow bar there. Yep. And you hear the move away from it, set it and run. There's not a great drain on ours, so you could remove the anode rod. Mm-hmm. That's probably the most effective way and fastest way. If you leave the pressure valve open close the pressure valve, remove the anode rod, and then open the pressure valve again and get out of the way when you're doing that. So I will say it is a little easier on his because he doesn't really have all that much he has to do. So what's that in your hand?
So this is a little filter that goes in line on it.
Are you supposed to put it back in there?
You can. What I do is I take it and stick it right up in here. That way when I go to use my trailer the next time, I remember that it's winterized and all this is empty.
Ah, like a little...
And it reminds me to go back, because while that's out, it leaves this open, so any residual water can keep draining out.
There you go.
So I leave that there, so I know, hey, if I turn on my water, it's just going to dump out of this.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like it did.
So any last little minute tips for like filters and all that? Because you're going to kind of winterize those too.
Yeah. Yep. So I will, before I pack everything up, I'll pull these off. This is the clear source with the 3 filters in it.
Boo.
I know. I'll pull those apart and drain all the water out of them.
See our link for our blue ones.
I know. I've been looking. But I'll pull those cases off and drain all them out as well, so they're just not sitting here full of water all winter.
But you'll actually open the canisters up? Gotcha.
And dump them all out. I'll pull my freshwater tank, make sure it's completely drained out so there's nothing sitting in there.
Right.
And then I still have to dump all of our gray and black tanks.
So if you knew you were going to go camping in 6 weeks, would you still remove the canisters, or would you just tip it and try to drain as much water out as you could?
Depends on how cold it was going to get at home.
And what it's made of.
Right.
Ours are all metal.
Yeah, these are plastic. It was one of those things that if I knew at home it was just going to be around that freezing mark just overnight for a couple hours, I'd probably just tip it and drain a little bit.
Gotcha.
If it's one of those, I know it's going to be in the 20s or teens and everything else.
For a long period of time.
For a longer period of time where things stand a really good chance of freezing,
Gotcha.
I would drain them all out.
All right. Any last little winterization? I'm assuming we're done.
Yeah.
With that portion of it. You still have a lot to do.
Yeah, I still got to back up.
And I'm going to stop filming you so you can get out of here, because checkout was...
Hour and 15 minutes ago?
Yeah, checkout was 11. It's 12:15, but they gave him till 1, so he has 45 minutes to do everything else now, which includes loading a golf cart.
Yeah.
So...
No, I said everybody has their own way of doing it. Find what works best for you based on the climate you're in. This is what's worked well for me for a long time, and so this is what I keep doing. So.
And there you have it, as he puts his hot water heater back in there. So, cool. Thank you, man.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Never got to do a winterization before, so there you go. Also, thank you for hanging out for the week. It was fun. We hung out with them. There's going to be a video at some point about all that. You probably already saw it, or it's after this. I don't know. This was a crime of opportunity. So, thank you so much for watching. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below. I know his wife really checks them. He checks them too, but I can always ask him as well. So, ask questions. We are here to help, whether it's me asking Andy for help, which does happen sometimes. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week. Bye, Mom.